Okay, I'm about to admit all of the.
Okay.
Okay, they're being admitted.
So is your number again?
504.
Oh, God.
Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Preservation Board's meeting of Monday, May the 23rd, 2022. I'm going to call a roll to determine who's here. Commissioner Robinson, are you here? Commissioner Hamilton, are you here? Commissioner Colleen, are you here?
Present.
Commissioner Richardson, are you here?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen, are you here? Alderman Coder, are you here? Chair is present. There are 3 people here. We cannot begin without a quorum. Commissioner Colleen, have you got a motion?
I move that we delay the beginning of this meeting until we have a quorum.
Is there a second?
Second.
Anyone opposed? Okay, we are in recess until we establish a quorum.
And Mr. Chairman, for everyone's benefit, is that 4:15 the likely time?
We've been told by at least one commissioner that I'll be present at 4:15.
Thank you.
Just updating you, we have 4 commissioners present now. We're waiting for a 5th. Bill Keeling, come back onto the screen.
Hello.
Hi,
Mr. Chairman, how are you?
I am fine, Mr. Keeling. I saw a picture of a cat sitting at your dinner table place that made me laugh out loud. You and that cat look exactly alike.
What, overweight and hungry?
Tell Pam that was her best post ever.
I'll tell her, and the cat may well make an appearance today. So,
Thank you. Mr. Scoggin, you are likely to win the award today for most serious backdrop.
I was getting ready to change that backdrop so I'm not perceived so obvious, you know. And I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you. Are you William?
I am not. I am Richard Callow, a
Richard?
member of this board.
Okay. Pleasure meeting you, Richard. You don't mind me calling you. You can call me Joe.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
And Mr. Teasdale has that fancy law firm background. It's all fuzzed up. Those are very expensive, I hear.
The blurred background, it's a pretty common feature you can find. I like your Cardinals stadium. I did notice that Ballpark Village is not built yet. So in the background there, you might.
I'm a traditionalist.
Fair enough. I had a soccer stadium background at one point, and I think people found that distracting. But maybe that's good. Maybe
Wait until our lawyer comes back. She's got one today. Commissioners, while we're waiting, you should know that Commissioner Weber has quit the Preservation Board. So we now have 2 vacancies. Commissioner Allen is traveling today, so we have 3 absences.
So do we have enough to make a quorum?
We have a quorum when 5 are here.
So where are we now? How many are here now?
We have 4 present,
Okay.
and we have 1 on the way. We're looking for him now.
Okay.
I believe the city sheriffs have been tasked with that. So I expect to see a note back marked non-est any moment. One of the funniest stories I know is that when a new sheriff took over, he came across a desk drawer in the sheriff's department that was full of non-est subpoenas to the sheriff.
Oh, wow.
Hard to believe they couldn't find the boss, huh?
Yes, tell me about it.
Chairman Callow,
Yes.
if you have only 5 expected, and as we anticipate, Commissioner Richardson recuses himself from the matter of the Lafayette Reserve project, does that leave us with not enough people to comment on this, to render a conclusion?
We will not be able to vote on it.
What do you think? Should we bother, or should we just try it again next month?
You okay trying it again?
I'm going to try this and try this again until it goes through.
Okay, we'll watch for you to pop up again next month.
All right. I will, yeah, it shortens the agenda for you guys. let's just do it again in June.
Who was presenting us from staff?
So I presume that's true for all of us?
No. Well,
Okay.
if we don't have 5, yes. We don't have 5 on that one. Jan, is that okay with you? Okay. Commissioner
Yeah, thanks
Robinson,
for
are you here yet?
Hey,
Chairman,
Yes.
it's Jack. Just so you know, I've got a hard stop at 5, so I don't know if that impacts how we take any agenda items today, but I wanted to make you aware if we ever start this meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
has the Hickory matter formally been removed from the agenda or deferred to the June agenda? Or deferred, I should say?
Commissioner Richardson, are you present?
Yes, I am.
You intend to abstain from agenda item A?
I
Or
do, but-
recuse yourself?
I'm going to abstain, but I think, or call it what you want, but I don't think that it affects his ability to have his item heard today. There's 5 of us present and I'm going to abstain. That just counts as basically it's going to be the remaining 4 are going to vote then. So if 3 vote for it, it would pass.
If you are abstaining and not recusing yourself, then that is correct. We will have 5 present. Jeff, are you still here?
Well,
I am.
Okay, we will in fact hear you today.
Okay.
I never thought I would utter the sentence, I miss David Weber. Meg, did momentarily mean today?
I'm sorry, yes, it did. I believe that Commissioner Robinson will be joining us momentarily.
Mr. Callow?
Yes.
My name is Tag Cummings. I'm just a resident. May I ask a question?
As long as it has nothing to do with this matter in front of us.
Perfect. How do we fill vacancies on the board? Are they elected or are they appointed?
They are appointed by the mayor.
Oh, okay.
And if you are interested, there is a great forum on the website. And if you're a structural engineer, we would very much like you.
Not one of those.
How about city resident?
I am that.
What do you do the last Monday, fourth Monday of every month?
You know, it's a great question. Now all of a sudden you've piqued my interest. So
Okay, then.
I will take a look.
Excellent. This meeting has not been in vain yet.
Be careful what you wish for, sir.
I know.
Are the appointees compensated?
I'm sorry,
Are the appointees compensated?
what is the opposite of compensated?
No money.
They're punished essentially. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, commissioners, I'm going to call a roll again. Commissioner Robinson, are you present?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, are you present?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, are you present? David, you can't hide. I can see your avatar.
Present. Sorry about that.
Alderman Coder, are you present?
I am here.
Okay, commissioners, we have 5 present. That constitutes a quorum. The order I will call the roll today is Callow, Robinson, Killeen, Richardson, and Coder. Commissioners, has anybody read the minutes for April 25th? And if so, give a motion.
I move to approve the minutes from April 25th.
There a second?
Second.
Any
Second.
objection?
Sorry,
Hearing
who made the second? Who made the second? Okay.
Hearing none, the minutes are approved.
Mr. Chairman, before you proceed, may I just remind everyone who is in the Zoom meeting that this meeting is being recorded, and that if you have any comments on any of the agenda items, to please put that in the chat box along with your name, especially if your name is not reflected in the chat box, and the agenda item in question. Comments that are made in the chat do not count towards the public record. If you want to speak on something, you actually have to speak and let us know. So we will call on you once we get to that agenda item. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, looking at the agenda and ahead of us, given some hard stops that we know are coming up, I propose that we hear the agenda items in this order: F, G, H, A, B, C, D, E. Does anybody object to that? Okay, then that will, commissioners, be the order in which we hear things, calling the first item, agenda item F, 33 Westmoreland Place.
Okay, give me just 1 second, sorry. It's okay. Apologies, we're having a little bit of difficulty with the PowerPoint. Give me just 1 second. It's okay.
We are fine, take your time.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Here's the 23rd, right? Or maybe 23rd.
No. My apologies for delaying this meeting even further. We will get started in just a second.
Director, remember when you asked me if we could move the appeals of staff denials to the top of the meeting and I said no, and then I did it?
According to who? In your email. In your email.
An email. Sorry, it's an exceptionally large document this time, and this computer is just struggling. Okay. All right, just sent. All right, let me share my screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, can you let Anthony Robinson back in? Okay. All right. Let me get down to this agenda item.
Sorry, yes.
What?
Would you send Ralph's thing to?
To your email.
I don't think
Your email. Okay. All right. Good evening. I'm Meg Lusto, Director of the Cultural Resources Office, and I swear to tell the truth. I am entering into the record the enabling ordinance 64689 as amended by 64925 and the Central West End Historic District Ordinance 56768 as amended by 69423, as well as my presentation, the agenda, the PowerPoint, and the application. I would like to start out by saying that this project has been under our staff member, Andrea Gagan, who is joining us remotely, although she is home and feeling very poorly. She will be able to offer clarity on some of the issues that may arise, but I'm going to do the presentation itself. So let's see. So this is for 33 Westmoreland. And as you can see in this picture, This is an appeal of the director's denial to retain and replace windows. The owners are Jim and Leslie Boland. The applicant is Mitchell Wall Architecture and Design Thomas Wall. And the staff recommendation is that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial as the windows do not comply with the Central West End Historic District standards. Pardon me. 33 Westmoreland Place is located in the Central West End Local Historic District, where the Cultural Resources Office and Preservation Board have jurisdiction over windows. The applicant and window provider initially worked with the Cultural Resources Office on the proposed window replacement in the fall of 2021, when staff and applicant discussed appropriate configurations and number of lights. Lights are the panes of a window. Staff informed the applicant, verbally and in writing, that a window section, including drawings showing how the windows would be installed in the existing window openings, would be needed before a permit could be approved. The Cultural Resources Office did not receive the required drawings showing the windows as installed or a permit application for the windows. In March of 2022, it came to the Cultural Resource Office's attention that the windows at 33 Westmoreland were being replaced. The building division then stopped the work, although most of the windows had already been replaced. The applicant has stated that they believed that the windows had been approved via an interior-only building permit issued by the building division, but a review of the plans on which that permit was based showed that there was no indication of windows to be replaced. Subsequently, the applicant applied for a permit to retain the already installed windows and to replace the remaining windows. At that point, the applicant provided the required window section drawings and installation detail drawings. The permit was denied as the windows do not comply with the Central West End Historic District standards. The applicant has appealed the denial and the issue is being brought before the Preservation Board. So this is the exact location at the corner of Westmoreland and Lake. These are some images that may help you understand what's in question here. The image on the left is from before the window replacement, and the image on the right is after. It's a little hard to see, so I'm going to zoom in so you can see the distinction between the upper story windows, especially as they're clear because there are curtains on the first floor. But you can see that the windows on the left, the original windows, are lighter in appearance and read more delicate than the windows on the right. So under relevant legislation, this is an excerpt from Ordinance 69423, the Central West End Historic District, architectural elements. Original or historically significant architectural features shall be maintained and repaired rather than replaced. Architectural elements on existing structures shall be maintained in their original size, proportion, detailing, and materials. No historic architectural detail or trim shall be obscured, covered, or sheathed with material of any kind. It is understood, however, that historically correct awnings, storm sash, or shutters may partially obscure some details when viewed from certain angles. See paragraph B5. Windows. The windows in historic buildings in the historic district include two broad categories that shall be considered in different ways. Special windows. These windows are character-defining features of historic buildings and are usually found on a street-facing facade. They may be quite large, as in a stair hall window. They may have an unusual pattern of divided lights or muntins, or an unusual configuration of muntins. A fanlight window is an example. Special windows may have leaded glass, colored or art glass, or curved glass. Due to the importance of these windows and the character of the historic building and the difficulty in replicating these windows, they shall be preserved through in-kind repair and maintenance. Enhanced thermal efficiency shall be achieved with the use of caulking, glazing compound, weather stripping, and/or interior storm sash compatible in design and color with existing fenestration. If special windows must be replaced, property owners shall obtain custom-made replicas in order to preserve the character of the windows. And it was our determination that this project does not comply. The windows that were installed have a flattened two-dimensional appearance because the muntins on the current windows are significantly shallower than the muntins on the original windows. And I'll go into detail in a moment on that. The original muntins were 5/8 inch wide and deep. We have a measurement here. The new muntins are 5/8 inch wide, but only 1/4 inch deep, causing them to read differently. Also, the installation detail drawings for the window sections provided by the applicant do not appear to be accurate for all windows. For example, in cases where the casement windows abut the window head, the size of the framing is much deeper than the 7/8 inch indicated on the plans. The width between the jamb and the window sashes at the sides of some of the sills of the windows also appear to be much greater than 7/8 inch. The elevation drawings provided during the initial discussions about the windows did not accurately show the size of the moles between the transom and the casement windows or the mullion between the windows. Because of these issues, the windows do not replicate the original metal windows. And I'll just go into a little bit more detail here. For those of you not familiar with the intricacies of windows, this is a drawing that might explain some of the terms that we're using. Obviously, this is the head of the window here. The jamb is along the sides of the windows. The mulls are the areas where the casement window abuts the transom. Muntins are the elements that divide the panes of glass, which are also called the lights. And of course, there's a window sill. These are the section drawings that I believe we received on April 6th, and Andy can correct me if I'm wrong on that. These are the drawings that showed not just what the windows would look like, not just a sample of the windows, but how they would be installed in the existing historic openings on the building. And this is one of the key things that we were waiting for before we could consider issuing a permit. Here's another drawing or another set of photographs showing the distinctions between the original windows on the upper floor and the new windows on the first floor, so that you can really understand the contrast between the two types of windows. And then this is a drawing showing the divided light, sorry, on the right. On the left, you can see the measurement of the original muntin. And on the right, you can see that that is shrunk to 1/4 of an inch here. And this is another set of photographs showing original windows, in this case on the first floor, and the new windows on the second floor. So the preliminary findings and conclusions. The Cultural Resources Office consideration of the criteria for changes to residential construction in the Central West End Historic District led to these preliminary findings. The site of the windows, 33 Westmoreland Place, is located in the Central West End Local Historic District. The new windows were installed without an approved permit. The original windows are considered special windows under the Central West End Historic District standards. The new windows do not replicate the original windows in installation, sizes of the mulls, and depth of the muntins. And we have not received comments from the alderman, but we have received comments from the neighborhood, and they have submitted a letter, and I believe their representatives here to speak.
Commissioners, questions of Meg? Okay, is the appellant present?
Yes, I am, Commissioner Callow. My name is Doug Teasdale, and I represent the appellant, the homeowners, and the technical appellant is the architect.
Great. Just for formality, is your testimony going to be the truth?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
I'm going to present two witnesses quickly, Joe Alito, who's a window contractor, and then the general contractor, Troy Duncan. But I wanted to give a quick overview of the appellant's position here.
Sure.
First and foremost, I believe the evidence will be that the metal windows that are replaced, and if we could pull up slide number 8 real quick of my presentation.
We don't have the number quite the same way, so.
Okay, let's see the first picture of 126 then. Just so the commissioners understand what we're talking about, 126.
126, okay.
So
Great,
this
okay.
is the picture from before the installation of the windows. This gives you a good indication of what it is. And then if we could go to the next slide, 127. So this is the view with the windows. I think the evidence is that the metal windows are the closest and most approximate available windows for this structure. And I think you'll hear from Joe Alito and Mr. Duncan that in their belief as experts in the field that these windows actually do meet the Central West End Historic District standards. A little bit of history for the parcel. This property on Westmoreland is not the original structure. The original structure was built in the 1890s. This is not a Gilded Age mansion like that. That structure fell into disrepair and was torn down. This structure was built in the 1940s, I believe 1941. And so they had metal windows. As I indicated, Joe Alito was the window contractor. You'll hear from him shortly. He will testify that sourcing these windows are the most accurate and best replacement windows available for these metal windows. The commissioners have to understand these are not wooden windows where you can substitute from a prearranged list of providers. This is an unusual set of windows. Yes, they're special according, I would agree with the commissioners or the Cultural Resources Director's view, they're special windows. But the windows were inoperable. We have the seller's disclosure, and I've submitted all these to the Preservation Board. That's indicated that the first floor windows and some of the second floor windows were completely inoperable. So there was no egress, so it was a safety issue and they needed to be replaced. So Joe Alito, I anticipate, will testify that these were the most accurate windows, the best replacement windows, the transoms, the lights, the number of panes, all approximate exactly what was there before. And he will testify that he met on site with the Cultural Resources representative, and they negotiated back and forth, and they sent revised drawings numerous times, culminating in a September 1 email, which I will present, that says, are these configurations good? Do they meet with Cultural Resources standards? The response to that, I think these configurations will do. So he ordered them. This was all before the windows were ordered and before they were installed. So you will meet with him and he'll say he's been in the business 20 plus years, worked in this historic neighborhood, and he'll testify, or he'll state that in his opinion, these are the best replacement windows in his belief that they meet the historic standards. Again, Mr. Duncan will also testify. He's a general contractor for PK Construction for this project. There's extensive renovation going on in this house. It had not been invested in quite a number of years, and the homeowner is investing quite a bit in this project. Mr. Duncan has extensive experience in this neighborhood, including replacement windows, including on this street. He'll testify that he was aware of the negotiations of Cultural Resources. He met with Andrea Gagan and the window contractor in August of last year, before the windows were ordered, to make sure that the replacement windows would meet Cultural Resources criteria. They had every reasonable expectation that when they finalized those negotiations in September, and when Miss Gagan said those will do, those configurations will do, that they ordered the windows and they believe that they met all the criteria for Cultural Resources. He will talk about permits, that the Rachel Dolan of Mitchell Wall Architects and PK Constructed submitted 2 separate permit applications that included specifically that the windows were being replaced. And so when in October of 21, he did obtain a permit, he had every reason to believe that the permit included the replacement of the windows. So he was very surprised when Cultural Resources took the position in March, when the windows were finally being installed, that there was no permit. And so they voluntarily stopped work. There was no stop or ordered that I'm aware of, the general contractor's aware of, and immediately applied for an addendum for the previously submitted application for a permit for these specific windows. And that's where we get here today. I'm asking the board to overrule the commissioner or the director's position that these don't meet the historic standards. So with that, I would like to ask Mr. Joe Alito to come in. Mr. Alito, are you available?
I'm here, yes.
Mr. Callow, do you want to?
Yes, sir. Would you tell us your name, please, sir?
Joe Alito, A-L-E-T-O.
Mr. Alito, will your testimony be the truth?
I'm sorry.
Will your testimony be the truth?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's going to bind you till midnight at least. So be real serious about this.
I am.
Proceed.
So Joe, just real briefly, will you tell the commissioners where you work?
So I work for Kirkwood Home Gallery. It's a division of Kirkwood Stair and Millwork. And in that capacity, I sell Blvd windows and doors.
And how long have you been in the window business?
In the window business, 26 years.
Okay. And briefly, you were asked by Troy Duncan and PK Construction to source windows for the property at issue here, correct?
Correct.
And if we could go back to slide 126, if you could briefly tell the commissioners what we're looking at the windows that were in the building at the time. Oh wait, I guess they're not.
Yeah, I'm not.
Okay, well, we'll just let's. Nobody's operating the.
Sure.
So let's just stick with slide 129 here. Slide 9. These are the pictures of the windows afterwards. explain to the Preservation Board what we're looking at in slide 9. There's been some discussion about metal windows. Why is that significant? And how do those differ from some wood windows?
So what we're looking at is aluminum clad wood windows. They're wood on the interior with a metal cladding on the exterior. And the layout of the divided panes and the number of units in each opening very closely replicate what was in the windows before, in the openings before the replacement happened.
So if we go back to slide 126, if we could go back to that, Ms. Listow. So the goal as a window contractor, and you met with Ms. Gagan on site, is that correct?
That's correct.
And if the record says it was August 11th, would you confirm that, or does that sound right?
That sounds right, yeah.
And was that before you had ordered any windows?
Yes.
And so what was the goal if we switch back to, if we show the commissioners this slide, and then if we go back to 127, what was the goal as a window contractor? What was your goal there?
Well, it was to as closely replicate the windows, the existing windows as possible.
And you've been in the window business 20 years. Let me ask you, do you believe that the windows in this slide here, the replacement windows, are the best replacement windows available for 33 Westmoreland?
I believe so, yes.
And as a window expert, do you believe that these windows meet the Central West End Historic District standards?
I believe that I have never seen their guidelines for replacing steel windows. Based on what I think I know about replacing windows in this neighborhood, the answer is yes.
So you said you have more, with respect to wood windows, is it fair to say there's a more uniform acceptability of what the replacement windows are supposed to be?
Absolutely.
And so this is unusual. Steel windows in itself or metal windows are more unusual, correct? Because these are from the 40s.
That is correct, yes.
So is it fair to say it's more challenging to find replacement windows for metal windows from the 40s than it would say from a Gilded Age mansion?
Absolutely.
And again, so your view is these are the best replacement windows available to replicate the look and feel of those 1940s metal windows.
Yes, absolutely.
So I just want to do a little bit, I want the commissioners to understand your initial visit. You mentioned, or you testified about August 11th. Was there a follow-up emails with Ms. Gagan at Cultural Resources?
Many, yes.
And I know in the interest of time, I will tell the commissioners I did send in 25 or 30 emails. They're in a packet, and I don't want to belabor it, but if we could say the next slide, which is 128, and this indicates, oh, okay, this is not the slide that, okay, so this is in support. This is a neighborhood support, which I'll ask. But at some point, you had a email from Ms. Gagan that indicated to you that the configurations that you had presented her, and this was through multiple revisions, were acceptable. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And she said, quote, "I think those configurations will work." Now, I don't know which slide this is because they're all not numbered. But anyway, is that your understanding that Ms. Gagan from Cultural Resources, after looking at multiple iterations of your revised window drawings, gave you what you considered approval to order the windows?
Yes.
And at that point, did you believe that Cultural Resources had approved the design, look, and feel of the replacement windows?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. As a result of those negotiations, did the price of the windows change in any way from what you had initially proposed to what ultimately was ordered?
Yes, it went up substantially.
Would it be fair to say that it went approximately 30% higher?
Yes.
And that was to meet the specific requests of Cultural Resources and the number of panes and muntins and things like that?
Yes.
Now, I want to ask you real quick, with respect to the depth of these muntins, I know in the denial, they indicate that the depth was an issue. In the 25 to 30 email exchanges that you had with Ms. Gagan, did she ever mention the depth of the muntins at all during those negotiations?
No, 0 times.
Okay, and if you could address, what is the significance of this depth of muntins? I mean, is that something that's difficult to replicate in a new window?
It is. So the windows that are being produced today are insulated glass. That insulated glass is somewhere usually between 3/4 of an inch to an inch, depending on who the manufacturer is. That's how thick the actual glass is, from the inside of the inside pane to the outside of the outside pane. Windows from the 40s and 30s and before, they were single glazed windows, meaning it was a single piece of glass. The muntin bar was and can be much deeper if you're only working with a single pane of glass. When you're dealing with insulated glass, the muntin bar can only stand so proud of the glass. It never sticks out beyond the face of the sash. So therefore, whatever the depth, the pointiness, the reed, I think is what was how it was referred to previously. That reed is compromised because the insulated glass depth takes up the majority of the stand, the reed of that muntin bar profile.
In your experience, you've worked in historic districts before. In replacement windows, would this be true all across the St. Louis area, not just in this dwelling, but others?
Absolutely, across the board, everywhere.
Okay. Bottom line, is it your belief that the windows that these installed here meet the Central West End neighborhood's historic district standards?
As I understand them, yes, absolutely.
Okay, I have no further questions.
You have another witness, sir?
I do. I'd like to call Troy Duncan real quick. Mr. Duncan?
Yes,
Mr. Duncan, your name, please?
Troy Duncan.
Is your testimony going to be the truth?
Yes, sir.
Proceed.
Okay, Troy, if you would just give the commissioners a quick background of PK Construction, your company.
So PK Construction is a full service general contractor. We specialize in remodeling, in particular historical remodels. The majority of our business is working on old homes and bringing them back. We have done we've done a lot of houses on this street in the Central West End neighborhood, as well as the rest of the central corridor.
So just give the commissioners a brief overview of the project and if we could pull up slide 127 of the project at 33 Westmoreland and the condition of the house when you first observed it.
Sure. So Jim Bolin is the owner of the house, and when he was looking at buying it, he asked me to walk the house with him to take a look at it and see what it would take to bring the house back. It was in extreme disrepair and just was really, really looking poorly. The windows themselves were non-operable, the ones we looked at, as well as looking from the exterior, rusted and just not painted and really unkept. The house, he wanted to do to restore the inside and the outside, and was wanting to make a significant investment in the house and wanted to figure out the best way to do it.
So, and my understanding is in the seller's disclosure, which is attached there, the seller themselves said the windows in the first floor were inoperable.
As well as some of the bedroom windows too, yes.
So you reached out to Joe Alito. Tell me why you chose Joe Alito to help source the windows in this project.
So we've installed a lot of new window replacements on this street and Portland Place as well. And we know the process, we know the historical standards. The reason why I called Joe was Colby has a Vista Lux window, which is a very special window in the sense of it is a special. So it is There's a ringing going on. If anybody else is hearing that?
Would someone who is not?
Hello, Diane.
Hi. I just wanted to check with you about that piano being picked up tomorrow.
Sure, everything's okay.
You want me to talk over? Or?
Yes.
Maybe Diane can call back later. Anyway,
Okay. So I reached out. So having, we've installed Marvin, Lowen windows. The reason why Colby was particularly attractive was the metal windows that 33 Westmoreland has have very narrow stiles and rails. And so that is not typical to other metal windows. That's very typical to the Vista Lux, which actually gets us a very close match to the metal windows that were the original there. So I reached out to Joe knowing that the Cultural Resources was going to require a close match, knowing that their product was the best one in this market.
and you were aware of the email traffic between Ms. Gagan at Cultural Resources and Mr. Alito?
Yes, Joe and I were in, so again, knowing the process, we wanted to get the windows ordered, and Joe reached out to her and I was copied, and we wanted to get approval before we ordered it, knowing it was a substantial amount of money. The windows are $200,000, and we certainly didn't want to order them without having the full approval of the office.
So your understanding, you got an email that you were CC'd, or Mr. Alito did, that said, okay, I think these configurations will work on September 1st, 2021.
Correct. There was a lot of emails back and forth well prior to that, where it was fully discussed, where she was asking us to make changes. So Joe was making those changes. I was talking to the customer, letting him know about the price increase because of the changes Andrea Gagan was directing us to make in order for the windows to be compliant with the standards that she was telling us.
And it's my understanding only after those back and forth were the windows ordered. Is that correct?
That is correct. It was, and there was actually a conversation with the architectural review with the architect at St. Louis City in the permit office, Ralph, that was also I had before these windows were ordered, talking about the process with Andrea.
And so you spoke directly with Mr. Ralph Wafer at the buildings commissioner office?
I did. We were trying to, Andrea was a little slow in her responses and there was a lot of downtime. So we were trying to figure out, we wanted to get them ordered because of the tremendous lead time the product has. So we were trying to get her approval, which I talked to him about needing her approval before we could begin in the permit process.
And you replaced windows in this neighborhood before. Do you believe that the windows in slide 9 are the best replacement windows available for this property?
Absolutely. And that's why I reached out to Joe and his company, knowing that they would be the best fit to give us the look of the original metal windows to this house.
And do you believe that the windows meet the Central West End Historic District standards?
So I absolutely do, based upon my conversation with Andrea, where she told me as much. She told us to do this so they could meet the standard.
Now, with respect to the Muntons, I want to talk about that. Have you had other replacement windows in this neighborhood or in the Central West End Historic District where the Muntons aren't 3/4 of an inch?
Absolutely. And I'm not sure, again, I heard Ms. Luceau talk about that. And, we've installed the wood windows that are insulated up and down that street. And if you go look, that is the depth of the Muntons. So what we were primarily worried about matching was the width, which we did match. The depth, you can't do a thing about, because unless we're putting single strand glass in, which we have not done. I mean, I have, before, as long as I've been working as a contractor, we've never installed single strand glass.
I want to switch gears real quick to permits. In September and now October of 2021, you submitted applications for permits for the remodeling and construction work occurring at 33. And at that time, is that correct?
That is correct.
And at that time, Rachel Dolan of Mitchell Walls submitted architectural renderings of the work that was to be conducted. And she specifically said that they were going to replace all the windows. Is that accurate?
It's more than accurate. So actually Rachel generated the signed and sealed drawings and gave them to myself and my team. We took them down to apply for the permit, and on sheet A21 in large bold letters, it's clear, it's not even regular print, not small print. It is in the center of the page, as big a font as you could have. It says that all windows are being replaced, and it even talks about it, windows and doors.
And so at some point, you were given a permit, correct?
Doug, I apologize. I can't hear you. There's someone's phone's back feeding.
So the city issued permits in September and October of 2021, and you specifically believe that they included a permit to replace the windows, correct?
Absolutely.
So you were very surprised when Cultural Resources took the position that you had not submitted an application for the replacement windows, correct?
I was shocked. In fact, based upon all the conversations, and I even called trying to reach Andrea, and then ended up talking to Ms. Listow about that. Yes, I was very upset and surprised.
Nevertheless, you stopped installing the windows, and then PK Construction filed an application, excuse me, an addendum to a previously filed permit, correct?
That is correct.
Now, are you asking the Preservation Board to overturn the denial of Cultural Resources' failure to issue a window permit?
Let me interrupt you all for a second. Jeff Weaselin, you seem to be the only unmuted person.
I don't know whose that feedback is. Troy, are you still there?
I am. I'm here.
Okay.
I'm sorry, proceed.
I have submitted some letters from the neighbors Todd and Jenny Dybel. And Ms. Listow, if you could pull up some slides from, let's see, right here, the first one. Yeah, this is Exhibit O. If you could just read that, Troy. This is from somebody that lives at 28 Westmoreland.
Sure. Troy, happy to see PK back on Westmoreland Place doing another great project. We have heard that there was some complaints regarding the windows that were installed at 33 Westmoreland Place. As you know, we have lived on the street for over 15 years, and we have seen many houses under renovation, including both of our homes, 28 and 11. We just wanted to chime in and say that the windows selected and installed at 33 WP look great. No objections from the Dybel residents. Take care, Jenny and Todd Dybel, 28 Westmoreland Place.
So if we could go to the next slide too. So if you could read, this is from John, who lives at 33 Westmoreland, or no, who lives at also on Westmoreland.
Correct. From John Kujawski. I understand that an issue has risen over the installation of the new windows at 33 Westmoreland Place. I have lived on WP since 1981 and served multiple times as a trustee. In my opinion, the windows are beautiful and enhance not only the home, but the entire street. John.
And I believe the next one may be from the trustees. Yes, no, the one after that, Ms. Listow, if you don't mind. Yes, and lastly, if you wouldn't mind reading this.
Sure. To whom it may concern, the trustees for Westmoreland Place have reviewed the project at 33 Westmoreland Place and confirmed that it does not violate any of the restrictions in our indentures and is therefore approved. Thank you, Katie Thomas, trustee, John Moran, trustee, and Dan Bocabella, trustee.
Okay. Lastly, I'm sure you're aware that a resident, Jim Dwyer, submitted a letter in opposition for the windows.
I was sent that letter. Yes, that is correct.
And I just real quickly, I wanted to give you the opportunity to address that before he reads it into the record.
Let's not do it that way.
Okay.
Let's let him testify first.
Okay.
Well, so am I going to then testify again?
Well, I will tell you in 4 minutes, we will no longer have a quorum. What do you want to do?
Okay, never mind. I will end. I have no further questions at this point. And that's it for the presentation.
Thank you. Meg?
Yes, if I can just address some of the points raised in Mr. Teasdale's presentation. I too have reviewed the email conversations between Ms. Gagan and the applicant or the appellant, and saying that something is an acceptable configuration is not the same thing as understanding the entire window as installed, which is why we required the installation drawings. Those drawings, which were only provided in April, would have also shown the muntin profiles. So we would have known about the depth of the muntin, but again, we only got those last month. And while I can certainly appreciate that we want citizens to understand what our standards are, we cannot delegate the interpretation of those standards to other people. That is our legal responsibility to do. And that is why someone's understanding may be in conflict with what we believe the standards are. And that's why permits are required, and permits were not issued in this case, nor were they applied for. We also have Mr. Ralph Wafer on the phone, and he can address some of these things as well, but the drawing that Mr. Teasdale may have been referring to, this was one of the parts of the plan, and it's very hard to read this, and I apologize, it's a giant drawing, but A says that all windows, doors, and frames shown dashed shall be removed, all toilets and sinks, etc. But the important part is that all windows, doors, and frames shown dashed shall be removed. As you can see on this plan, none of the windows are shown as dashed. So the plans that were approved did not approve tacitly or otherwise the removal of the windows. And Ms. Gagan is here if there are any questions.
Anybody here to speak, Meg?
Mr. Jim Dwyer.
Mr. Dwyer? Jim, are you here?
Looking. He is here. He's muted.
Sorry,
Hello, Mr. Dwyer. How are you?
apologize for the technical snafu. First of all,
Tell us your name and
James
swear to tell the
Dwyer.
truth.
I'm sorry, talking over you.
I'm sorry. Please tell us your name,
James Dwyer.
and is your testimony going to be the truth?
Yes,
Proceed.
thank you. I'm going to preface my comments by saying that this is on a personal level. There's a level of disingenuousness that strikes me as approaching the profound level here. The repeated testimony about both the window vendor and the general contractor being so experienced in working in historic preservation zones, particularly specifically on Westmoreland and Portland places, flies in the face of the fact that there was no building permit applied for specifically for the windows. I think Ms. Lousteau just emphasized that when she talked about the failure to show dashes around any of the windows. So the irrelevance of that first set of plans being filed. I'm kind of struck by the contrast between the level of experience of these gentlemen and their behavior in this instance. That said, I will proceed to read my comment into the record as quickly as I can. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, this letter is written to express strong support of the director's denial of an after-the-fact application to retain non-compliant replacement windows installed without a permit at the referenced address and to install additional non-compliant windows. The project was undertaken without the filing of an application for a building permit and a stop work order, and I could be right or wrong about this. My impression is that a stop work order was issued by the building division following receipt of a complaint. The applicable regulations and procedures regarding replacement of windows on structures located within historic districts are well established. It strains the imagination to think that any competent supplier or contractor working in that arena could possibly be unaware of the requirement that a permit application must be filed and a permit issued before work commences. And that sentence was written prior to today's testimony. Had those procedures been followed in this instance, all issues could have been identified and resolved in advance. Instead, work commenced without authorization. The replacement windows were subsequently determined to be non-compliant, and the applicant now seeks relief. We believe there is no foundation for granting that appeal. The existing structure, built in 1941 to plans drawn by Maritz, Young, and Dussard, is situated on a prominent corner lot and is highly visible from Lake Avenue, which serves as the gateway into both Westmoreland Place and neighboring Portland Place to its north. Westmoreland and Portland Places were listed in the National Register of Historic Places in 1974 and are recognized as the most palatial of the private places in St. Louis and as unique examples of American domestic architecture of their time. It is in the interest of all property owners in the district that historic standards be maintained and that those values be preserved. The CWE standards were adopted in 1978 and have been instrumental in preserving the irreplaceable character of the Central West End over the ensuing 4+ decades. The integrity of the standards is dependent in part on uniformity and consistency in their application. We can think of no compelling argument for this to be an exception. Accordingly, we urge the Preservation Board to deny this appeal. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Teasdale, anything else to add to the record?
No, I just want to say, I think Mr. Dwyer's mistaken that no building permits were applied for. But other than that, I'll leave the determination to the Preservation Board of the facts.
Thank you. Meg, have we got anybody else to speak?
We do not.
Okay, commissioners, this concludes our testimony in this matter. Commissioner Richardson, have you got a motion?
Yes, I move that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial as the windows do not comply with the Central West End Historic District standards.
Is there a second, commissioners?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman. Is there any discussion? Commissioners, hearing no discussion, there's a motion on the floor that's been made and seconded. I will call a roll. The chair votes present. Commissioner Robinson? Do you vote yes or no?
I am thinking.
I'm sorry, I did not hear you.
I am still thinking.
Okay. Commissioner Colleen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Alderman Coder, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Abstain.
Chair votes yes. That is 4 yeses, 1 abstention. Thank you, commissioners. Nancy,
Here,
what can we do next?
if you want to go ahead with preliminary design approvals, you can.
Can we vote on them?
You can vote if there are conditions attached. We may need to discuss whether those conditions are acceptable to the applicant or whether they want to come back. But if you want to go ahead and proceed with preliminary design reviews, you can.
Okay. And your opinion on whether we can proceed with G and H, which are appeals of staff denials?
Not if you don't have a quorum.
Okay. I will call a roll. I am present. Commissioner Robinson, are you here?
Yes.
Commissioner Colleen, are you here?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Hamilton, are you here? Commissioner Weber, are you here? Commissioner Allen, are you here? Alderman Coder, are you here? I count 4 commissioners present. We do not have a quorum. Okay, commissioners. We will have to defer consideration of agenda items G and H until such time as we have a quorum. We'll proceed with hearing agenda item A, 2245 Hickory.
Mr. Chairman, on that agenda item, I will be abstaining from deliberation, action, or any vote on it.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, Jim. Very disappointing. So, I'm sorry?
Doug, we can still hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. My name is Matt Cassidy. I'm with 333 Realty from 1925 South 11th Street. It was item number G. So should we stay on the call for a quorum or should we just postpone it till next month? What would you recommend?
Meg, can we call them if we reestablish a quorum?
If you will put in the chat your phone numbers, we will call you. Anybody who is here for that agenda item, if we can reconvene a quorum, we will call you if that happens. Just send me your email, send me your phone numbers.
Okay, yes, ma'am. All
Mr.
right.
Cassidy, by the way, thank you very much for your patience. I apologize that we were not able to maintain a quorum. We had an unexpected resignation.
Got it. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll send my number over.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
If you could just give me a minute. I'm having trouble seeing the screen. Not being a particularly good technocrat.
Jan, we have we just have the corner scene of the vacant lot and the new construction, if that's helpful. And I also just want to be sure, is Mr. Winterling still on the call?
I don't know.
I'm asking Mr. Winterling, if you're on the call, would you let us know?
I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, well, let me proceed screenless. I'm Jan Cameron from the Cultural Resources Office. And this is a preliminary, a preliminary review application for 2245 Hickory. This will be familiar to you because it was at the last meeting. And it consists in a reconsideration of the previous preliminary review because the shape of the proposed pop-up structure, which was the controversial point in here, has been revised. And Mr. Winslow is going to present that to you tonight. But to begin with, this is the site. And next, please. It's located on the extreme western edge of the Lafayette Square development, which occupies the north side of the 2200 block of Hickory. Next. And I think what I'm showing, honestly, I can't do this without seeing the screen.
Sorry,
but,
Jan, this is the two elevations, the street elevation and the alley elevation.
Okay, so the proposed change is that the pop-up roof will now be flat topped. And so when you're looking at the primary elevation, there's a comparison of two. Initially, you would have seen a sloped roof from, well, you really wouldn't have seen this from Hickory, but it would be a sloped roof that would slope down from Hickory. Now that will be a vertical wall of siding and will be partly visible. We don't know exactly how much. Maybe Mr. Winseling can go into that detail more, but that will be partly visible from Hickory, the very top of it. The next slides should be the rear elevation. That does not change in any way from what you saw last month. And then the next slide would be the site plan. So you can see that it is at the very southwest corner of the development, and it will have garages at the alley. Next, which is, I'm assuming, some surrounding photos showing the context, and also the partly completed development further east on the 2200 block. So the concern is that the pop-up roof and the railing around the fence, railing around the roof will be visible. It won't be primarily visible from Missouri nor from Hickory, except for the very top, but it will be visible if you are north on Missouri, which is the adjacent street. And therefore, the staff has determined that it still does not comply with historic district standards, which state that unusual roof structures shall not be visible. So I have a couple of letters of support, one from, I have more than a couple. I have 7 letters of support, which have been provided already to the board for their review. I have another letter of support that I received just prior to the meeting from Maria Hadlow, who says that she was a 14-year resident of the square. It's my understanding the rooftop deck at Hickory would enhance the building's value, not be visible from adjacent streets, and would not be dissimilar to other structures like it in the square. Thank you for your consideration. And then I have a letter from the Lafayette Square Preservation Committee, which is opposed to the new design as it was to the previous. I think that's pretty much my testimony. Are there any questions?
Oh, good job without sight. Okay, Jeff.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. So this has been kind of a weird one. There are all kinds of little details that are just different than usual. One of them is that the initial conversations I had with Jan about the pop-up, the wedge-shaped pop-up, were that she didn't like the shape, that the staff concern was about the wedge shape. But when the agenda was written up, it was expressed that it was concerned about the visibility. But I thought we were only worried about the visibility because of the shape. And so that's why we changed the shape, was to make it acceptable. But the fact that they're still opposed to it over visibility, I didn't know that going in. The other thing is, I think that the history recorded in the beginning of the staff report that that at the April meeting, the February meeting, that there was discussion of a rooftop addition at the corner, in addition to the inline ones, that in the middle of the block ones that were actually on the agenda. And then it actually says that guidance was because of its siting on a corner and the direct visibility of a pop-up structure on the roof from Missouri Avenue, such an addition would not comply with the Lafayette Square standards. I got the exact opposite impression. I thought there were two of them, Michael Allen and somebody else, who were ready to say, you know, it's not even so bad on the corner. But then, you know, because it wasn't actually the subject matter of the meeting, it wasn't on the agenda, that conversation was cut off and we did not return to it. So when I came out of the February meeting, I thought, heck, two of these people are already ready to support this on the corner. All I need to do is show up, make my case, and it'll sail through. So, so when I came in April and did not have letters of support from the neighborhood or anything from the alderman, it was because I didn't think I was going to need it. Finally, there's the other issue of the neighborhood association. So a couple of you are new commissioners since 2019, but when we did this initial approval of sort of the overall plan in the fall of 2019, the historic code had different zones. This was a zone that was less restrictive than other zones. And the Lafayette Square Historic Committee, at least the members at that time, and some of whom are still involved today, thought it should be a different zone. They thought they had agreed to a map that showed this site being in a more restrictive zone. And so they've been holding this project to the standards of the most restrictive zone since 2019. And they still are. I think broadly, they like what we're doing. Broadly, we get along. But when these issues come up, they keep looking at it through the lens of, well, this should be in the most restrictive zone. And so that's why we keep getting very polite. I mean, they're always super nice and we're cordial and we communicate, and then they come out in opposition. So let's kind of hustle through these pages so I can just kind of outline how I see this, and we'll move on. Okay, so that's the overall view. Those are actual colors that we're planning to do. That's the actual, that drawing is to scale, unlike so many drawings that you see. That's what we're looking at, that building there on the north side of Hickory. Next slide. And so you see on this page, circled in, ovaled in yellow, are the middle of the block pop-ups that were approved in February. Next page. And then here is what we're talking about today. So it's the far left of that streetscape facade facing Hickory, the far right of the alley facade, and then we've changed out the image at the bottom to show the flat roof. Next page. Here are, this is sort of a map. So from above, we're looking down at the drawings we're going to see next. Next slide. Here's sightline A. And sightline A, next page, I did this one with the wedge-shaped pop-up, just so you could see that the wedge-shaped pop-up was completely invisible. And I changed actually where the little person is standing. The previous drawing had that person at the limit where the pop-up would not be visible. And it's some feet into the private property. But I thought, really what's relevant is what's visible from the street in front of the building. And so I set that guy this time right on the very edge of the public right-of-way. That's a 5-foot tall set of eyes. The eyes are 5 feet off the ground and at the very edge of the 60-foot right-of-way. With the wedge shape, you cannot see anything of the pop-up from the adjacent street. Next slide. So I'm calling this one B. It's actually a slice from the same direction, but when we go to the next slide, you see that it's with the flat-topped pop-up, which I thought we were trying to do. And so this one, you can see that the arrow hits the south edge of the structure on the roof there, just a little below the top. I reckon it might be as much as 3 feet, almost certainly not more than 3 feet, and it's 4 feet wide. So a person is standing at the very edge of the public right-of-way might see a 3-foot by 4-foot patch of siding up there if they're looking for it. If that person moves into the street, if they just move past a parked car, if they went 12 feet or so into the street, I'm sorry, so the public right-of-way has the sidewalks in it too. So if they just move into the parking lane, if they go from the edge of the sidewalk into the parking lane, they will not see the top of the pop-up. Next slide. This one was done from an angle in the intersection of Missouri and Hickory. It was drawn to catch the rear corner because when we originally did this, that was the tallest point. And next slide. It clears that tallest point. You see the arrow goes past the 509.72 elevation, which is the top of the north edge of the pop-up. You can imagine that if we turn that angle a little bit less oblique, and let's go to the previous slide, that if we turn that angle to hit the pop-up somewhere on its face instead of going to the far rear corner, we might actually be able to see a little bit of it because it is taller as you move south now, whereas the old one was lower and lower as you move south. This one is the same height. I'm sorry, it's not taller. It's the same height from north to south. So it's possible we might be able to see something there because of the, there's cornice. Are you still hitting cornice at that angle? Yes. And because of the uncertainty over there, I did not produce another sight line for it, but I'll acknowledge that it's possible you might be able to see some sliver of the top of the pop-up from the X location also. Next slide, and then the slide after that. Let's go to slide Y. Here we are at the west edge of the Missouri right-of-way. This is exactly as it was before. You cannot see, next slide, cannot see the pop-up. It's simply too far below the edge of the roof. Next slide, and this is Z. And Z is exactly what it was the last time because the rear didn't change. All we did was make the roof flat, but the rear edge was always at its maximum height, and that's where we are now. Hold on a second. just tell her I'm in a meeting. The next slide. And then there you see, as we did before, when the arrow hits something, it stops. And so this one isn't going over the top of the roof. It's hitting the back edge of the pop-up. That other angle there that you see that is not labeled, that's it's steeper than the green one. That one actually shows where you'd have to be standing to not see the pop-up at all. And it actually lands right more or less at the back wall of the garage. You'd have to be like in the wall of the garage. So the net effect actually is that it's not, that if you're behind the garage, if you're in the alley, you still may not be able to see it. You've got to go a ways down the street to actually see the pop-up. So next slide. What you see circled or boxed in green there is let's go back to the one with the green box on it, number 30. Next, there you go. Yeah, and so what you see there is what someone theoretically would see coming south on Missouri Avenue from Hickory. That point, the point that diagram Z was drawn from, is up next to the blue building in the next slide. And I think this is an important, it's labeled context. And I think it's really important context that the view that we're concerned about here, the only way, at least with the wedge-shaped pop-up, the only way it's seen is from the north. And this is the view from the north. So anything that's actually in the green box, I'm sorry, I explained this last time, but I might as well reiterate. In the green box, go ahead, that slide, please, thank you. The area that's in green of the pop-up is about 7 feet tall and it's 4 feet wide. It might be 6'8", it might be 7 feet, it's something like that. So we're seeing something above the roof of the building that is about 7 feet tall and 4 feet wide. And then so next slide. This shows the context in which that 7 foot tall, 6 foot wide item is of concern. And I think this kind of underscores that no one's going to be looking at it. Next slide, please. these are some historic flat roof pop-ups. So you see one there on 18th Street, and then the next one as you go down is part of the International Shoot Complex, and then the next one up, that's on Rutger, and then the last one is on Dolman. All of those, and two of them you can see siding on. Those are flat roof appendages that I guess could constitute model examples of a roof appendage that's flat and which are visible. Every one of the photos you see here and on the next page, the next few pages are taken from the street. So this is a recently approved roof access at 1912 Park Avenue. Next slide. That one, if you're standing on the same corner and just turn about 90 degrees, you see that. It's on 18th Street, the first building south of Park Avenue. Next one. This is kind of a doozy. This is on Shodo, and it's actually visible from two different streets. So it's a siding wall that's growing out of a brick wall. I believe it has doors, or at least a door on the other side, but this is what is visible from the street. And below, you can see how it's visible from Shodo. And at the right, it's actually visible from the north end of 18th Street. So the curb in front of you, the road is curving back to meet up with Dolman there. So that one's visible from two streets. Next slide. That is the one on Dolman, which is visible from the Truman Parkway. It's also slightly visible from Hickory also. You can see a little wedge of it, probably something comparable to what you might see if we had something at position X in our in my little series of diagrams. Next slide. This one is on Hickory Street. From the street in front, you can see the railing around the deck, and from Mississippi, you can see the actual pop-up itself. But that's the same house. Both images are of the same house. Next slide. And this is the only one. It was difficult with the overcast sky and a white railing to get to be able to see it on the day I was taking photos. So this is the only photo where you do not see the street or the curb or something in the public right of way in the photo. But this one is actually across the street from the last one. And you can see it has, looks like a wedge-shaped pop-up and a deck railing visible from the street. Next slide. I think the bottom line on all of this is that these were okay, because visible has long been construed to mean visible from the adjacent street. I was copied on one of the notes to Jan that one of the neighbors sent. It was one of the longtime, he was a former chair of the Lafayette Square Preservation Board Historic Committee, who said that that was always his understanding, is that visible means from the street, in front of or adjacent to a corner building, the building at hand. And so our pop-ups, it's certainly the wedge-shaped one, is visible only from the north when you are no longer adjacent to the building. And so I think that's a really important distinction. The fact that so many others have been approved, I think, is an important thing to note as well. Is that the last slide? We going to black after that? Yes, okay. So I guess what I wanted to leave you with is that if after considering all the ones that have previously been considered, and if after considering the letters of support, which I did not have the last time we were here, you would rather recommend approval of the wedge-shaped one because it is visible from fewer places, than approve the one that is on the calendar today, I'd be happy to build it. Thank you.
Could I respond?
Jan, if I may interrupt before then, I know several people joined the meeting a little bit after we started. If you wish to speak on this or any agenda item, please put your name in the chat along with the agenda item on which you wish to speak. Thanks. Go ahead.
Anything else you'd like to add to the record? Jan?
Yes, I wonder if, well, first of all, I'd like to Mr. Winserling's point that we are unfairly rating this building. The actual standard citation is for residential, commercial, and mixed-use construction with historic context, which is in fact the designation of his property. It's
Oh, yeah,
what
I
like-
agree.
Okay, so
That's just the committee, the Lafayette Square people are holding us to the old standard. You're cool.
well, no, I'm not so cool, because 30510 of the standards say that under your tier 1 or tier 2 designation, as I'd like to call it, roofs of new non-residential construction shall be flat or pitched and shall not have any unusual attention-getting form. So that's where the Cultural Resources has an issue with it. In addition, if without taking too much more of the board's time, if we could just go through some of your examples of previously approved properties. The next slide, please. This one, okay. This one was previously approved above the staff's recommendation for denial by the Preservation Board. And that was in 2015. So I really have nothing to defend us about on that one. Next one. This, however, is 1410 South 18th Street. And we could not really find any permit on this except one that was approved for interior and exterior alterations in 2002. Next. This one is something that I think merits closer consideration. It was approved by us. This is 1804 Shoto in 2020. I think it's an excellent example of why we are so concerned about the visibility of the structure, because when we reviewed this permit, we were given front and rear elevations, but we were never given a side elevation. And that was our oversight. We should have ensured that we could see that. So this is an unfortunate intrusion into the streetscape and would not have happened if we had had all of the understanding of what this project would look like when it was completed. That's why we are so concerned about this particular site. Next. This one is, in fact, was approved. This is 1212 Dolman, was approved in 2017. But you will note if you look in the frame on the right that we requested that the parapet wall be substantially built up to hide any evidence of this pop-up or dormer, whatever you want to call it, from the street. In addition, this is the center of the block, and it was always intended that there would be construction to its right so that it would become hidden. Okay, and next. This is an interesting one. This is 1918 Hickory, and I have no anything at all that addresses these structures. We have never approved them. We have never seen them. I have no explanation for their appearance. Next. And the same thing goes for this one, 1915 Hickory. These are entirely unknown to us, and we were glad to have the information, and we will look into it. That's concludes my testimony.
Can I rebut one little thing?
Let me ask you a question first, Jeff.
Okay.
When you marked recently approved, what's that about?
Oh, I can only presume. I could have labeled it other existing. I just figured that they must have been approved if they were, if they got built.
Okay. Who's here to speak? Meg?
I believe there are people in the room, but they haven't signed in yet.
We'll give them 10 seconds.
Is there anybody here who wishes to speak on this item?
Yes, I do. And I signed in.
Okay, for some reason it's not coming up for me, but Mrs. On Sessions is here, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Sessions, proceed.
Hello, this is Suzanne Sessions. I live at 1831 Kennett Place, and I am a member of the Lafayette Square Preservation Committee, not to be confused with the Preservation Board. They changed the name. I have no control over that. First of all, I want to say thank you, Jan. Thank you very much for going through all of these slides, because that is going to save me a lot of time for what I have to say. Basically, we had a meeting with the entire committee of the Lafayette Square Preservation Committee, and to a person, we all agreed to deny this request for change. This is wrong, and the main reason it is wrong is because you will be able to see parts of these new structures from the front of or the corner of Hickory in the front, as well as from coming south on Missouri. And I went there today and I took better pictures, but unfortunately I don't have them, of how much you will actually see from the street on Missouri, looking south. It may seem like a simple little nothing street, but it's going to be a major entrance to our neighborhood. And you will see it as you go closer up from the picture that Jeff showed. You will indeed see both that roof railing as well as the boxed shape that he now has. And the version that he showed, all in green, is a pretty good indication of what you will see from the middle of, from LaSalle going south up on Missouri. So all of these items that you see that Jeff brought here, for one reason or another, I'll use that phrase, popped up. Some of them were approved and they were a mistake. Some of them were never approved and went up. And the biggest concern that the Lafayette Square Preservation Committee has is that this will happen again if we approved this particular example at 2245 Hickory. I'm not saying it can, but it gives every reason to believe. Nobody seems to know where some of these came from or how long ago they've been there. But I do know we're in asking for trouble if on this one case, we approve, to let this go. This is a corner, and this will be seen from Hickory as well as Missouri. And we have yet to face what would happen with the McKay side on Hickory. And I don't know if Jeff is going to come up with that or not. But we are following exactly the code issues that Jan mentioned. It's the 300 section. We're not going back to the 200. We're going to the 300 section, which is how this building was qualified and put into the code. So although we may seem to be brick huggers, we're not. We just care about this neighborhood and we want to make sure we do not have this happen again, because we have every reason to believe it will happen, because people see this, they say, oh, they did it. We can do it and not even have it showed. Or we'll have it showed, but it doesn't make any difference because of what happened. So thank you very much for your consideration on this. This particular issue is very important to the Lafayette Square, Historic Standards Committee. Thank you very much.
Meg, has anybody else signed up while Suzanne was speaking?
No, they have not.
Okay, commissioners.
Can I make that one little point, Mr. Commissioner Callow?
Hold on one second.
Good.
Commissioners, we've heard from Jeff several times on the question of pop-ups. And in a quick search on Google, there are still many forms that he has not yet proposed to us. A pyramid, a cylinder. So, I mean, rather than hearing from him every month, the commissioners who can discuss this without conflict are Killeen and Robinson, both of whom who work in the business. I wonder if we could not have a discussion among the three of us that could involve Jeff, if necessary, on whether we're ever going to approve a pop-up or not, so that we don't torture the poor guy who's just trying to build his project and he does not have to come back. And also, Meg, I really don't want to see him again.
Oh, come on.
If we decide that we're not going to do a pop-up, and I don't know what we're going to decide, then if he wants to build a pop-up, he should go pull a permit. But I would like this preliminary discussion to give him some idea of what we're thinking. Commissioner Killeen first.
Oh, well, I brought it up a meeting or two ago to Jeff that we've had these low level things that you can just slide it off. They use them in Europe. It's got a glass top and you wouldn't be able to see it from the street at all. And it's pretty finished. And it's out there on the internet, just, creative roof hatches. So that's what I would suggest. Then nobody would object.
Commissioner Robinson.
Yeah, so I'm familiar with the roof hatch that Commissioner Killeen is referring to. I also understand. I think I understand Jeff's position as a developer. I think he's made a very good case based on examples of roof appendages here. Some of them, obviously, we're saying we don't know when they were built, if they were, although I'd say based on everything I've seen here, and I'm not sure what when the Lafayette Square Restoration Group's code was put in place that described roof appendages, but given the ones that I have seen, the newer ones, I believe, and obviously there's research that would probably need to be done that shows that these were done post code, but obviously someone could correct me if I'm wrong. Secondly, on a couple of the older structures where we have stairs to the roof, and so there is a bump out on the roof of a couple of buildings. I have a hard time with that, but then Lafayette Square's restoration group saying, but this is going to be a problem. He has clearly shown that this exists and existed on buildings that have not been modified. In addition to obviously buildings that have had some modifications and had stair access to the roof added. Where I stand is I believe that I am open to one of two options. Ideally, I would say that because typically a stair tower would have been rectilinear and not had this angle thing to try and avoid seeing something that are seeing it from the street, that we do a design as it was done previously. But if the concern is seeing it in most circumstances, then we can do the angular roof design. Again, my understanding of the code, and I read through it, obviously, we might disagree, but my understanding was that what you see from the roof is applied to the streets that are directly adjacent to the property. And and not somewhere else. I mean, literally, I'm sitting here right now looking from my office across the Central West End, and I'm seeing all kinds of stuff on the roof from several blocks away. And if that is our determining factor, I honestly think that I believe that is an overstep. I don't think that, I don't think I think there should be a boundary for what we see, because in the proper placement, like I said, I'm looking right now at things that from my window that would not qualify, but they're blocks away. I can see BJC right now. And I just, I mean, at what point do we make that determination? But it definitely can't be, 3 blocks away, 4 blocks away, because I can see something.
Commissioner Robinson, would you want me to vote yes or no to a motion on this one?
I would be inclined to vote yes on some sort of stair access and not necessarily a roof hatch, but an actual stair tower, very similar to the stair towers that you see in the slides that were presented.
Commissioner Killeen, would you want me to vote yes or no?
No, for approving Mr. Winserling's application.
Uh-huh.
If he did it in brick, I'd say yes, but no as presented.
Commissioner Robinson, what do you think about that?
I would be okay with that.
Jeff, what do you think about that?
Well, the conversation, so it's in the middle of the roof, so doing it in brick would be problematic. But if you want us to, we had a conversation before the February meeting with a sample group of the Lafayette Square Committee. It wasn't everybody, it was just a few people who came to the meeting. And at the time, they expressed support for the ones in the middle of the block and an openness to the one on the corner if perhaps we clad it in like a fake slate material. They thought that might be okay. But then they met with the larger group and the whole group said no to everything. They were opposed to the whole thing. So we've not presented a slate scenario. I would entertain that if you want to. I mean, we would even entertain doing one of those, really thin brick, things that carpenters put up things. I don't know that it's great architecture, but I'd do it if it gets me a yes.
So yeah, I was actually going to mention thin brick. I mean, I know that we normally would not approve that, but because it's in the middle of the roof and we're talking about now trying to carry the weight of a masonry structure in the middle of the roof, I don't think that works, but I do agree with Commissioner Colleen. And so in this particular instance, I would say I would be open to doing a variance to allow thin brick such that we had a brick structure above.
Commissioner Killeen, what are you thinking?
Oh, well, thin brick's kind of taken in a different direction. I would have to look at the standards, but yeah, I still think it just makes sense to do my idea. It'll save thousands of dollars and everybody will love them for it. Even the owners, because they're kind of nice, these things.
Cool. Okay. Commissioner Killeen, will you make a motion, please?
I move the preservation uphold the director's denial of this project as it does not meet the Lafayette Square historic codes.
Chair seconds it. I'll call a roll. Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
No.
Chair votes yes. The motion is upheld. Jeff,
I'll be back.
Jeff and staff, you've heard our discussion. We really don't want to hear this again as a preliminary review. Watch for a permit and act accordingly.
Right. And so, and it is a denial of a permit, the point at which we can take you to court. Is that the next step?
I think you probably go to the planning commission first.
Plan commission?
Although
Right.
you'd have to appeal to us first.
Right. Well, we'll see you next time.
We'll see. Okay,
Thanks.
commissioners, agenda item B, 4974 Lindell.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Richardson.
Yes.
I need to abstain from deliberation, action, and vote on this item as well.
Is there any reason you came to this meeting, Commissioner?
I promise to take you on the next agenda item.
Okay,
All right. Good evening, board members and the public. My name is Meg Lustow with the Cultural Resources Office. Jan Cameron and I worked on the staff report for 4974 Lindell. This is a preliminary review, pardon me, to construct a 30-story multifamily residential development. 4974 Lindell Boulevard is located within the Central West End Certified Local Historic District, where the Cultural Resources Office and Preservation Board have jurisdiction over new construction. This proposal is to construct a 30-story high-rise apartment tower containing 293 apartments at the corner of Lindell and South Kings Highway Boulevards. Attached to the building on the east would be a parking garage with approximately 360 parking spaces. Atop the garage would be a pool and amenity roof terrace and the decorative front facade. Oh, thank you so much. I am, apologies for that. Atop the garage would be a pool and amenity roof terrace, and the decorative front facade along Lindell would serve as a green wall hosting live vegetation. The project site is currently a minimally landscaped parking lot. The new tower would be adjacent to the 100 Kings Highway building directly south, which you can see in the slide. 100 Kings Highway is also a high-rise tower that was completed in 2021. It should be noted that that site is located outside the boundaries of the Central West End Local Historic District.
Meg, how did you get the 100 to lean?
It's just a photographic trick. This is the precise location of the site here on Lindell and Kings Highway with Forest Park directly across Kings Highway. And here is the, I believe, the first floor plan. We'll put up an image of the proposal. Actually, I think we're saving those for the applicant's presentation. So, okay. Relevant legislation. New construction or additions to existing or residential or institutional buildings. When designing a new residential, and these are from the Central West End Historic District standards. When designing a new residential or institutional building, the height, scale, mass, and materials of the existing buildings in the context of the immediate surroundings shall be strongly considered. When designing an addition to an historic building, the addition shall be compatible in height, scale, mass, and materials to the historic fabric of the original building. Under height, scale, and mass, a new high-rise building may be located either on a block face with existing high-rise structures or on a corner site. A new high-rise building may exceed the average height of existing structures on the relevant block face. In all cases, window levels, water tables, and foundation levels of the new building shall be comparable to those of neighboring buildings. Special emphasis shall be given to the design of the building base and to upper story setbacks as they relate to and affect neighboring buildings. In our comments, the new building tower falls under the high-rise category and complies with the standards, being on a corner site and a block face, that being Kings Highway, with other high-rise buildings, and therefore may exceed the average heights of existing buildings on the street. It does not, however, comply with the requirements for windows and other lower elements to be comparable to those of neighboring buildings, in this case, a St. Regis building to the east. However, these standards were developed contemplating a building that would be inserted within an existing historic block face, which is not the case with this corner site. The tower is separated from the historic building by a parking garage with a decorative facade, and the building's podium has been designed with tripartite storefronts, echoing those in the district to provide a welcoming, well-scaled pedestrian experience. The proposed tower displays exceptional architectural design and elegance in its form and materials, and its location next to 100 Kings Highway would produce a creative interplay between its streamlined form and the angularity of the adjacent tower. Going back to the standards. For those portions of the historic district located in areas governed by form-based zoning, the building heights prescribed for new construction have been determined appropriate from both the historic district and form-based zoning perspectives. The 3-story minimum height for these areas is hereby adopted by these standards. The maximum heights for Boulevard Type 1 development are hereby adopted. For the small area of the historic district within the neighborhood core development area of the form-based code, the 6-story minimum height and a limited maximum height are also adopted. Our comments on this are as follows. This project was reviewed by the Cultural Resources Office and the Zoning Department under the form-based code. The results of that review noted that much of the project conformed with the regulations, but that there were 14 elements that would require the granting of variances from the Board of Adjustment. Those variances include plane breaks on the elevations, vehicular access, and material, mainly the glass and tower on the tower and the concrete of the parking garage. The recourse for applicants needing such variances is an appeal to the Board of Adjustment. At its April 6, 2022 meeting, the Board of Adjustment heard this appeal of the form-based code. Their action was, and I'm quoting now from the letter, to continue the appeal for up to 60 days to allow the petitioner to meet with Cultural Resources, unquote. The Cultural Resources Office now brings this to the Preservation Board for its review. Under location, a new or relocated structure shall be positioned on its respective lot so that the width of the facade and the distance between the buildings shall be within 10% of such measurements for majority of the existing structures on the block face to ensure that any existing rhythm of recurrent building masses and spaces is maintained. The established setback from the street shall also be strictly maintained. Garages and other accessory buildings, as well as parking pads, must be sited at the rear of, and if at all possible, directly behind the main building on the lot. Complies. The building will adhere to the existing setback on Lindell, maintaining the boulevard effect of the street. Under exterior materials, in the historic district, brick and stone and masonry and stucco are dominant, with terracotta, wood, and metal used for trim and other architectural features. Exterior materials on new construction shall conform to established uses. All new building materials shall be the same as the dominant materials of the adjacent buildings. Artificial masonry is not permitted, except that cast stone that replicates sandstone or limestone is allowed when laid up in the same manner as natural stone. Cementitious or other paintable siding of appropriate dimension is acceptable substitute for wood clapboards. A submission of samples of all building materials shall be required prior to approval. Does not comply. The tower will be primarily glass and metal. Again, these standards contemplate a building to be incorporated within a traditional streetscape, which, given its siting and location, is not the case with this project. Instead, the tower will continue the wall of tall, architecturally significant buildings along South Kings Highway, bordering Forest Park. Fenestration. New buildings and building additions shall be designed with the window openings on all elevations visible from the street. Windows on the front facade shall be of the same proportion in operations as windows in adjacent buildings, and their total area should be within 10% of the window area of the majority of buildings on the block. Partly complies. There are windows on all elevations, but otherwise the building's fenestration is completely different from that of traditional buildings in the district. Again, its position on this corner and separation from the rest of the block suggests that this standard is less applicable and that the building's location would mitigate this nonconformity with the standards. Decks. Given the urban context of the neighborhood, the relative narrowness of building lots, and the general interests of privacy, terraces or patios at grade level are preferable to elevated decks. Complies. The building will have terraces at the street level, 2 upper floors, and the roof. There's no applicability of accessory buildings under curb cuts and driveways. Where curb cuts for vehicles and driveways did not exist historically, new ones shall not be introduced. Curb cuts for pedestrians at street intersections, mid-block crossings, passenger drop-off and loading zones, and similar locations shall be allowed. Where a parcel is not served by alley access, proposed exceptions shall be considered on a case-by-case basis and evaluated for design suitability. Complies. No new curb cuts will be made on Lindell or Kings Highway. There will be access into the parking garage from the alley as well as from Lindell, but the Lindell curb cut will be in essentially the same location as that which now serves the current parking lot. And under coordination with form-based zoning, when portions of the historic district are located in an area for which a form-based code has been adopted, the regulating plan, building envelope standards, and building development standards will be used in conjunction with these standards to review new construction within that portion of the historic district, and we have addressed that earlier in our report. So, preliminary findings and conclusions. The Cultural Resources Office consideration of the criteria for new construction in the Central West End Historic District led to these preliminary findings. The design is of high quality and will be an asset to the Central West End and the City of St. Louis. At the suggestion of Cultural Resources staff, the developer agreed to revise the original project site plan and adjust the location of the building to comply with the established setback on Lindell. And let me show you that slide here. So the setback is here. The tower had originally been further to the north. It has been shifted southward. So again, to comply with the existing setback on Lindell, maintaining the critical boulevard appearance. The developer has held several meetings with adjacent property owners and addressed most of their concerns. The Planning and Development Committee of the Central West End Association is in support of the project, as is the board of the neighboring St. Regis Apartments, Inc. And we have received comments from the Alderwoman. She is in support of the project, and I believe a letter was forwarded to the Preservation Board this afternoon.
Do you have the Alderman's letter?
I can get it. This may take me a moment.
Okay.
I see. Give me just 1 second. Okay, to the Preservation Board. I support the passage of the historic requirements for the Albion Coppler Properties, Inc. at the May 23rd Preservation Board hearing in Building Community, Tina, Sweet TPL, Alderwoman, 17th Ward.
I'm sorry, what does that letter mean?
I would leave that to the Alderwoman, but she conveyed to me verbally that she was in support of the project.
Thank you very much.
So based on these preliminary findings, the Cultural Resources Office recommends that the Preservation Board grant preliminary approval to the project as presented, with the stipulation that final plans and exterior materials be reviewed and approved by the Cultural Resources Office.
Questions of Meg, commissioners?
Just a question for you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Would it be possible to take a straw poll of the members present to see if we need to hear any more on this issue?
Commissioner Robinson? I will say I'm inclined to support it.
Same here.
Yeah, no, I don't need to hear more.
Commissioner Killeen, have you got a motion?
I move that the Preservation Board grant preliminary approval for this project.
Second.
I'll call a roll. Commissioner Robinson, you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Chair abstains, motion carries. Thank you. Calling agenda item C, 700 Allen Avenue.
Okay. Good evening, all. Bob Bettis with staff. I'm going to give you these last three items and then we can head home. Okay, the first one I have is
Actually, take your time. There's some interesting stuff coming up.
I'm sorry?
I said, take your time. There's some interesting stuff coming up.
Well, I mean, you know, if you want me to drag it out, I sure will. Okay, the first up is this project here. It was written by my colleague Andi, but she is of course unable to make the meeting. To be quick with this one sec. Doing our shuffle. It's a preliminary review in the Soulard Historic District. The items in question, there are two items in particular. This is the building in question. Give you some brief context here. This is an aerial shot showing the area of work in question, and also its place in the historic district. You can see it's on the very edge of the district. The work taking place will be up on top of the single story portion, as well as this white wall you see here that faces south. Here is some street level context that shows you to the north and south. And this is the area of work in question. Before you, there are two items that are being presented that do not comply with the Soulard Code. The first item is that rooftop decks are not allowed to be visible. There's a conversion to a restaurant taking place at the building, and it calls for adding a rooftop deck to the first floor portion. It calls for a wood handrail. I'd like to see maybe a metal one, but in terms of what you'll see, it's the handrail. The second portion, you can see on this drawing, is that back wall. They're going to be adding some doors and kind of ganging windows that kind of alter the appearance of that back wall. It's considered a semi-public facade, so you're not supposed to alter original windows, openings, the like. Originally, we had 4 openings, so those should be maintained per the code. So you can see the proposal again shows kind of a changing of that back wall, that's street facing. And again, here is some context showing the actual visibility at tree level of the area of work. So given that, those two items, staff recommends that the board withhold preliminary approval as the roof deck and exterior alterations do not comply with the Soulard Neighborhood Historic District standards. Any questions for you?
Any questions, commissioners?
Is this the building I go through to get my car wash? It is, right?
I believe it is. Yes, sir. And just so we have not heard anything official from the SRG or the alderman.
Okay, let's hear from the applicant.
Well, we're doing a two-story restaurant there.
Just to build a record, tell us your name and zip code, please.
Albert Anderson, my zip code 63136, and I'm with Anderson Design Consultants.
Okay, proceed. Thank you.
Okay, we were doing a two-story restaurant, and the client wanted to put a deck off the upper rear of the building, what you see there. You know, I was just proposing wood railing, etc., whatever. If it had to be metal, that would be okay. That would be fine. We are changing that back wall from what was previously approved in order to achieve doors to come out to the deck, and windows to match the windows on the upper front elevation, or the 7th Street side elevation of the building. Yes, there. So that's what we're here to try to get approved. Putting a deck up there or something where they can sit outside.
Anything else, sir?
That's it for me.
Questions from commissioners?
Yes, sir. So the preservation, or not preservation, but staff has suggested this metal railing. You said you're okay with that. Do you understand what they're talking about with these gang windows on the second floor, sir?
Yes.
Would the design work without ganging those windows together? I can see you've got French doors leading to that new patio.
I can see that happening, as long as we can match a door that would kind of make it still look the same, look that way.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
Commissioner Robinson, anything? Bob, anybody here to speak?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I do not have anyone to speak on the item.
Okay. Commissioner Robinson, have you got a motion?
Mr. Chairman, while he's thinking about that, quick question. Has Soulard been made aware of this? They're usually so active. I'm just wondering why we're not hearing from them.
Yeah, we have not heard anything official from the neighborhood, but we did notify them. And I don't know if Albert or his client reached out to the SRG prior, but we haven't heard anything. But I do know that they definitely are aware of it.
May we ask him that, or is it too late?
I'm sorry?
We haven't heard about it.
Who's speaking?
PRT member, SRG. Walker Hamilton.
Hey, Hamilton. I'm sorry. Yeah, we were under the impression that you had heard the item, but we hadn't heard anything back yet. So
no, sir.
Okay.
I can't say I'm inclined to support, but I am one of the more liberal members of the group, so I can't speak for the group as a whole.
Colleen, what's your thought on this?
So is that member of SRG, is he testifying that they did not receive notice of this project?
Walker, is that what you told us?
Yes, sir.
Well, Walker, prior to the our notification, you didn't hear anything, or you did not hear anything at all from the applicant prior to us? I'm just trying to clarify.
I have not been made aware of anything, and usually, the current president or the head of the PRT circulates this info, and this one had not been made available to us at all. And Michael is Michael, the current president, is standing right here, Michael Pastore, and he hadn't heard about it at all.
Okay.
I guess, Michael, would you want to, like,
Absolutely, we would like to see the plans and see, yeah, everything.
Michael,
If it's up to code, if it's historically correct.
Michael,
Those are the things
I
that-
think we would prefer to have the opportunity to review. Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, does that suggest a direction to your motion?
Yes, it does, sir. I move that the Preservation Board defer action on this item for 30 days to give the applicant a chance to show his design to the neighborhood association.
Does 30 days mean until the next meeting?
30 days, right, until the next meeting, yes, sir, of the Preservation Board.
Commissioner Robinson, do you second that motion?
Yes.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. This is deferred till next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Albert, we'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you.
An exciting project, by the way. Thanks for taking on that building. Good luck. to
Talk
you.
about, you talking to me?
Yes, sir.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay, the next item, I do believe the SRG is aware of. I do have some correspondence, so hopefully if Walker and wants to chime in at this point in time, and I think he's seen correspondence. That being said, next up is a prelim review to construct 2 townhouses at 1032 and 1034 Geyer Avenue in Soulard. We have been working, well, let me give you some context real quick. It's currently a vacant lot.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second.
Please.
Commissioner Richardson, I completely forgot your entire existence. If at any point I ever do that again, would you just yell out, please?
I will. Thank you.
He's alive. Excellent. Okay. Some quick context for you. This is the property in question. It sits between a single-story building and a 3-story building on the south side of Geyer. This again highlights the area of work, shows you the context east of the site. And then here's some, I like to call it winter context, looking to the west, and the empty site is here to the left. And then here is just your other shots showing location. Working with the architect to refine the design. This was the latest that was submitted. The model example is at the right. It is a property in Soulard. Obviously, it doesn't match it, but it kind of it swaps around the fenestration a bit, but it does offer a sense of a better design than we saw prior. There was a lot more empty space. So staff was satisfied with the example and the proposal before you. We did go back and forth with Mr. Jay Gibbs with the SRG. And again, if Walker wants to chime in, if they have seen it, Mr. Gibbs had kind of a list of issues he wanted to see. The architect is fine with that. That includes make sure the brick travels enough down the side of the building as to offer a better appearance than all the siding, and that goes on both sides. The SRG rep at that time was concerned about the setback. The setback does align with the neighboring properties. The massing and the fenestration itself are appropriate as they do match the flanking buildings. Staff's fine with this. The architect's willing to work with us on any tweaking we have. Again, the correspondence with the SRG with Mr. Gibbs, I think we're okay with the proposal on a preliminary level. So we are offering our standard recommendation that you grant approval to final design details, materials and colors through our office.
Sorry, questions, commissioners?
Do we have any opposition to this one?
I have not seen any, sir.
Then so moved to what Bob just said.
Is the neighborhood association here?
Walker is present.
We did hear this one, and everything spoken by Bob is correct.
Is there a second for Commissioner Killen's motion? Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes.
Okay. And last but not least, I want to make a quick note on the application. There was an error, a scrivener's error by me. The item said it's an appeal of a director's denial. That's a cut and paste error on my part. I apologize. This is actually a preliminary review. This may look familiar to you. If you've read the description, basically at the last meeting, Commissioner Allen made a definitive motion to deny the project, deny the wall outright. The issue is prior to his motion to deny the retaining wall, it seemed clear to staff and also members of the board who we spoke to afterwards that they were fine with the wall being at the street because you had approved one at the sidewalk, excuse me, at the sidewalk before. So we were bringing this back on a preliminary basis to see if you were willing to make a motion to approve it at the sidewalk and not it was set back 5 feet prior, which was our main objection to the application prior.
Commissioners, what say you?
Bob, what do the standards say on this? Are we supposed to be matching those berms?
Well, it said, well, yeah.
Talk about the berms.
Well, the standard says you should not alter the appearance of the slope. The slope was altered previously. As you can see in this picture, she had a two-tiered wall. So it does say if more than 50% of the hills on the street are not modified, it should not be modified. And then it also discusses, the artificial material, proposing the Versalock artificial units you see in the picture here. So it's twofold. It's you shouldn't alter the slope, and then it's the artificial material. Shall not alter the slope.
Which district is this?
This is in Skinker to Bolivar.
Anybody here from there to talk about it?
I believe the applicant is here. Miss Ellerson was here. We had heard at the previous meeting, we had correspondence from a member of the neighborhood who was not in support of the location being pushed back 5 feet off of the sidewalk. She said that if approved, she would prefer to see it at the sidewalk line, given that there was a approval down the block, as you can see here by the board.
Is she an official with that group?
She is, yes.
She is, okay. And any ruling on this idea from them?
No, I mean, it's essentially the same proposal. This is what she had suggested be the compromise position, so to speak, if the board chose to approve it.
If I were to make it, well, I don't know, are we going to hear from the applicant then? Because I don't have a motion to jump to on this one.
Well, I mean, if I may, I'm sorry, staff still makes a recommendation to deny. Staff still feels that it's, even though there was chatter last meeting that it might, offer staff a way to compromise and put the wall to the street, staff still feels it does not comply. However, we're trying to be fair to the applicant in that we think the motion was made incorrectly, but staff still recommends denial of the application.
I don't understand what was incorrect about the prior motion.
Well, it denied it outright. So it just denied the retaining wall, period. So staff can't approve a non-compliant wall. So had the board made a motion to approve the wall at the sidewalk, then we could have approved an application for it. But it was denied completely, not giving staff the flexibility to approve anything.
So
it's not compliant.
Is it your impression that Commissioner Allen meant a different motion?
We can't assume that, but he did state right before his motion that there's clearly a compromise with staff here. And so, and I had spoken briefly with, again, that was the impression we got from the motion to deny it outright. So we couldn't move forward as a staff.
Okay. Let's bring the applicant up, please.
Sharon should be here. Sharon Ellerson. She was here prior.
Ms. Ellerson, are you here?
She is here.
Sharon, you're muted if you're here.
Here we go. Hello. Hello.
We can hear you, Sharon. Yep, you're there, Sharon.
Okay. Hello.
Can you turn your camera on?
Oh, don't know how to do that.
Okay. Good enough. Are you driving?
No, I'm not.
Okay, that's fine. What do you want us to do?
I would like to have approval of the retaining wall. I'm willing to do it up to the point of the sidewalk. Since you all approved retaining wall 5 doors west of me, I would like to do the same.
Questions for the applicant from commissioners? Okay, thanks, Ms. Ellerson.
Thank you.
Commissioner Richardson, have you got a motion?
Yeah, I move that the Preservation Board grant preliminary approval of a retaining wall up against the sidewalk and grant the necessary variance thereto.
Is there a second?
Okay.
Ms. Walsh, is that motion in order?
Yeah, I have to say, I'm not familiar with your variance procedures. So if you, I guess if you generally allow variances to the materials, et cetera, then that would be okay. But I have to say, this is my first attendance at this meeting, so I'm not sure.
Commissioner Richardson?
It was a perfect motion.
A perfect motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion, commissioners? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Commissioners, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Who made the motion? I'm sorry, who made the motion? We couldn't hear.
Who made the motion to adjourn?
Richardson.
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned. Thank you,
Thank you.
commissioners, for unusual meeting.
Bye.
Okay, we did.
I'll now end the recording. Good night, everyone.
That was the very last one.